Hello, Ryan here, and welcome to Star Citizen Sunday. This is a weekly show which covers all of the news from the week just past. Be sure to subscribe if you like what you see, and let's get on with it. This week, the subscriber program gets updated, we learn more about structural salvage, plus Alpha 322 gets even closer to releasing to the live servers. So Alpha 322 is getting closer to releasing to the live servers, with it currently open to all backers on the EPTU channel. And since getting back from my holiday, I have managed to jump in a couple of times and check out the salvaging updates and some of the new settlements found around Hurston, and it is feeling much more like a game as each patch comes along, having many wow moments as well as I wander through each settlement at the various times of day, checking out what they have to offer. It is, however, still very much Star Citizen as we know it right now, with NPCs just standing there doing nothing, although the server frame rate was very low on the server that I was on, but I have also been suffering from some very severe client frame rate drops when approaching various settlements, like the oil rig, sometimes only briefly and clearing up quite quick, other times for the full approach and having to literally abandon visiting that location, trying to take off again, which can last a good 5 minutes as I'm trying to get away from the location with about 0.4 FPS. Now, of course, this will be something CIG will be working to improve, as we have heard recently about the settlements in Pyro, but overall, from the very little that I have seen, I am loving the new features, and being able to buy and sell things at the settlements, I think will be a big win for many people, including myself, as I will now be able to fill up these personal SEU boxes with weapons and armor and stuff, and sell them to the settlement rather than having to deal with landing zones, space stations, and transit systems, giving a greater sense of it being an open world and just living in my ship. Now, in regards to the replication layer split, tests were done a few days ago on the tech preview channel for the Evocati again for another 4-hour play session, but this time it was on a 322 branch, which was kind of expected, as the chances are that this split, if happening this year, will now need to be on the 322 build and not the 321 branch anymore. Now, I have no idea how this test went or what the results were, but if they can get this working alongside the crash recovery for, say, 322 live before the end of the year, then that would be a great win. However, we will have to wait and see what they say and see what's gone on. But with that said, I am expecting there to be more 322 patches and more replication layer split tests as well with the crash recovery system before Cloud Imperium go on holiday. So here's hoping all goes super smooth and we can have a solid build to see us through the holiday season. So this week's Inside Star Citizen was talking about structural salvage, which is a feature coming in Alpha 322. Now, when we first saw this feature in action, it was a very early prototype simply exploring how the process may work, and as they found, the performance hit experienced when a ship is being broken up into pieces was too great to be usable. So they had to reconsider their approach, especially as they wanted to get this system into players' hands as soon as possible to get testing and gather the data they needed. So structural salvage, as it is now called due to the reclaimer claw not functioning as originally intended, more on that in a second, is the process of breaking apart ships into smaller pieces that can then be extracted as construction materials to be sold or used in crafting, which you will now notice certain craftable items require both RMC and construction materials. And of course on the back end, this process is removing items from the persistent database, so actually helping to alleviate the pressures put on the servers when ships are just lying around, which kind of gives me an honourable sense of satisfaction. Now, although they have stated that they try to put features into the game further along than Tier 0 these days, sometimes it does help to get things in early and in a playable state so that they can gather the feedback and learn from it while figuring out how it fits within the rest of the game. So they wanted a version of this out this year, which is certainly not the final version of salvaging, but it is a good first step to test the feature. Now, for the Vulture, it is encouraged that you scrape the hulls of the ship first, and although I can't attest to this, as I have not tried it myself, I did see people in-game saying that 1 SEU of RMC, which is the material scraped, is worth 15,000 AUEC, rather than I think it was 7,600, so practically doubling what it was, which certainly does encourage doing the hull scraping first, I'm not sure how much the construction materials are worth though. It is supposedly less than the scraped materials, so if someone does know, please do drop that in the comments below, but be aware, these prices and values will certainly change and fluctuate and be balanced over time. Now once scraped, you turn on the resonance field, which charges up energy on the target ship and will fracture that ship into smaller pieces. But as long as the ship's power is on, you won't be able to fracture it. So you must turn off its power first. You need to turn off its shields in order to scrape the hull. This is a little bit of a way to help reduce griefing. And I think it's a good approach for now, especially as we are still awaiting things like the resource network. Now once it's fractured, you then switch to the disintegration mode. That can disintegrate the parts of the ship, drawing them into your internal storage area or your buffer as construction materials, which can then be moved out as physical 1SU boxes and stacked as normal. Now the buffer, which is currently set at 13 SEU, is a new addition that acts as temporary storage between gathering the material and then putting them into the cargo boxes in your hold, meaning you have more space in your ship, reducing the need to get up and down after every 2 SEU of material scraped, making it a lot more user-friendly and enjoyable, plus having the option to auto-eject all of the buffer, so all of the 13 SEU boxes, one at a time, without you having to press the button, which is actually very enjoyable. So long as you move them quickly enough, it'll keep pumping them out. And I do enjoy this process as it feels somewhat like I'm working a short duration process line, which does fit nicely with the industrial aspect of the Vulture and salvaging, without feeling too repetitive like having to get up every 2 boxes. Now it does also sound like you can only sell the actual physical boxes in your hold, and not any of the material held in your buffer, which does make sense as these boxes are physical, so they can be removed. But does mean that you will then need to empty the buffer to then sell the rest. Now although I am yet to do this, I do like the sound of this approach. However, it might be a little tedious having to go back and forth to the terminals and the ship hangars, travelling across in transit, but I think as we start to see more of these locations like the settlements popping up, providing other locations to sell things like the scraped materials, hopefully for 322, again I haven't checked this, then that process might be a little less labour intensive. Now for the Reclaimer, the co-pilot seat, which is the claw operator seat, does the majority of this process, with the claw now being the energy field emitter used to fracture and disintegrate and then extract the materials. And while sat in the operator seat or the co-pilot seat, you will see the claw in front of you, giving you a good field of view as to what you're looking at so that you can see what you're doing. And the tractor beam operators will be able to track to pieces of fractured parts into the claw's area of reach. Now they do unfortunately state that they don't have the ability to use the claw as originally intended, so munching ships into smaller pieces, which is a big shame. Hopefully when the Maelstrom physical damage system does come along, they will be able to find a way to allow this, but as it stands right now, the claw won't be munching at this time. It also doesn't move just yet, so there is a lot of emphasis on working together with the tractor beam operators and the pilot to get the position right to work efficiently. Now, as I say, it's a big shame that the claw isn't able to munch, but I do personally feel that they will find a way to get this working when more systems come online. But overall, I love the need for teamwork on this ship, as that is what will make this experience very special and is what is intended for ships like the Reclaimer. Now, the filler station on the Reclaimer allows players to eject cargo containers of not just 1 SEU anymore, but 2, 8 and 16 SEU, making it way more useful and efficient as well, reducing that back and forth when loading things in and out of your filler station, as well as when we get hangars and ways to store cargo to build up more and more of this cargo so you can sell it in bulk. It'll be very helpful. Now, one thing the Reclaimer can do that the Vulture cannot is break up any ship of any size and gather its material, while the Vulture can only break up and process ships up to the size of the Star Runner, the Mercury Star Runner, with any material gathered beyond the capacity being lost. Now, as mentioned, they will take a look at enhancing the destruction side of salvaging once the Maelstrom system comes online, and of course when the resource network is implemented with components and such, this will take salvaging to another level on top of this. Now, what I love about this process is how it also allows us to clean up ships that have been left behind, just cluttering up the place and causing performance degradation. and I would love to see more information via the scanners, telling me if a ship is fair salvage or not, plus missions dynamically spawning based on player actions. So if a ship is left, and the player claims a new ship no longer wanting their old one, having a mission maybe asking salvagers to go and chop it up, or maybe working alongside scrapyards and SRVs. Once the Argo SRV has moved a ship to a scrapyard, if a player doesn't come and claim their old ship, making it fair game to scrap in some way. A lot of edge cases with what I've just said there, so potentially lots to work out if that's the plan, but I am loving moving around the new settlements, checking to see if a ship is still owned by a player on the server or not, and then scraping it out of the game if not, making some money while helping to improve performance. Now again, I will reiterate that this is not the final version of the salvaging process, and there is a lot more to come, but I do like how it works as it is now, but of course certainly look forward to it expanding even more. But that was Inside Star Citizen. Let us move on. So also this week, the RSI Arastra had its Q&A. Star Citizen Live was cancelled this week, as all of the teams are working on getting 322 to the live servers before the holiday, plus the subscriber program was updated to include new rewards. Firstly, we also have new plants and planters, which, as novelty as they are, as a plant lover, one thing that I did find myself obsessing over when I played Starfield was collecting all of the houseplants, as weird as that is. So as we start to see personal hubs and hangars come along, decorating these spaces to make them our own is going to be very fun, and I do like seeing these plans. But in regards to the subscriber program updates, I am not entirely sure what is new. I haven't really paid too much attention to this kind of thing, but I will link the post below, so if you are interested in checking out what the new sub perks are or whether you want to subscribe, you can do so at your leisure. So that brings us to the end of the show. If you do enjoy my content, please consider subscribing and hitting that like button. Also, I am able to do this thanks to my very generous patrons and channel members. If you appreciate what I do and would like to help make it even better from as little as $1 a month, all of the links are provided below.